pay attention to what we're paying attention to? Why is it that that is something that's so important to us, that the opinions of celebrities are so important to us? Why is it that we idolize celebrities rather than idolize people with ideas? Why do we look up so much to people who sing songs about genitalia? Literally, if we pull up the lyrics to some of the songs that are in the top 10 right now, they're singing about genitals. Would you want that for your kids? Would you want that for people you care about and that you love? Which one would you rather them be? Full of ideas or song lyrics about genitals? And by entertaining, what we mean necessarily is that it's distracting. It takes us away from something else. What's it taking us away from? What are we paying attention to? Pay attention to what we're paying attention to. Have you found your meaning? Have you found your purpose? Have you found the reason for getting up in the morning? Have you found the thing that propels you forward every day? Have you found the thing that speaks to your soul? Have you found the things that excite you? I don't just mean the things that entertain you, but the things that really are necessary to a joyful life, to a meaningful life, to a purposeful life. Because the life that you're establishing right now is the life that you're going to be living in 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, God willing. And it's the life that if you're going to have children, that you're going to be bringing your family into. Then you're going to go out and you're going to create a world. And the world that you're creating is the world that you're going to bring your family into. And you're going to bring everybody else's family into. And not just here, but all over the world. We're so interconnected because of technology. So what is it that you're paying attention to? What is it that you're pursuing? What is it, by the way, if you're entertaining yourself constantly, what is it that you're trying to distract yourself from? Is it the ennui? Is it the boredom of life that leads to a despair and meaninglessness in ourselves? Maybe you don't know what a person thinks, but you certainly know what they feel. In other words, what they feel is, I'm going to regurgitate this thing I've heard before because I want to be part of the herd, I want to be part of the group, but you don't know what they really think. There's a big difference between thinking and feeling that. We make a mistake when we confuse the two and we put them together as though they're the same thing. And really consider that. Like people will, like you ask somebody, what do you think about, I don't know, what do you think about abortion? Well, you know what, I just feel that, I didn't ask you what you felt, I asked you what you think about it. You know, what do you think about, I don't know, the war in Ukraine? I don't know, I just feel like, stop. Not being asked what you feel. But if you're saying, well, but that's what I mean, understand that now you're conflating those two things. You're equating thinking and feeling. And those are very different things. Those are very different things. And there's a problem when we put the two together. Like if you ask, like, what do you think about the death penalty? And people oftentimes will say, well, how would you feel if you were condemned to death? Well, I guess we should just get rid of all laws too then, right? Because if I get pulled over for speeding, I would feel like I don't want to get a ticket for speeding, so we should just get rid of speeding laws? No, of course not, of course not. What we think about things should be very different from what you feel about them, but we confuse it. Okay. What else? That's what I'm talking about. Like when we say something is necessary, necessary sounds like it's required. I mean, that's what the word necessary means, like it must be. This is going to shock you. The world has existed for a long time before that, before phones, generally, before cell phones even specifically. This will shock you. When I was a student teacher here, the iPhone had just been invented. It's not old technology, man. This is really, really new stuff. You know, also is really, really new. A 40% increase in teenage female suicide rates. I'll let you piece that together. I'll let you try to figure out if there's a connection between these things or not, and what those connections might be. You know, what else is also new is record levels of anxiety and depression and mental health disorders among teenagers into early 20s. And we can fold our arms and say, oh, we're just better at diagnosing it now. And I'd invite you to read the literature about that and see if that really is the case, or if there's a connection there too. Now, we say that, and a lot of times we kind of assume like, oh, so you're saying that we should just get rid of phones. No, what I'm saying is that they're here. And so we have to figure it out. Because this is true. It isn't one or the other. It isn't just, therefore we should get rid of all of these things. The genie's out of the bottle, man. You know, the ghost is now out of the machine. So we have to figure out a way to live in a world where that's all true, where that's all the case. And so a problem becomes when we start thinking about it as necessary. Necessary, like your pants are necessary so that when you leave the house, you don't get arrested when you walk to school naked. Your phone, though, is not necessary in the same way as your pants. But the problem is, just like when we equate thinking and feeling, and we kind of put those on the same plane, so my well-reasoned, well-researched, well-thought-out ideas that have taken me years and years and years and years and years to come to is just the same as you saying, I just feel like these are not the same, man. These are not the same, and we treat them as though they're the same. This is one of the reasons we end up in so many problems with discourse and trying to figure ideas out. And when they say, like, well, everyone's opinion is equal, I suppose in an intrinsic level, but not everyone's opinion is equally thought out. And so I guess I would ask you, what would you rather kind of model your life after? The well thought out ideas of people who have studied things for centuries? Or I just saw something on Instagram, so here's what I feel. And that, by the way, I really do mean that. That really is a question, because you can see how so many people do base their lives off of that. You know, I mean, it's interesting to me that if I were to ask you to name, you know, I don't know, two or three artists who are the top 10 songs in the country right now, top 10 songs in the world, rather, I bet you probably could. Can you name one or two living Nobel Prize winners in physics? One or two Nobel Prize winners in literature? One or two Nobel Prize winners in anything? We have to pay attention to what we're paying attention to. Why is it that is something that's so important to us, that the opinions of celebrities are so important to us? Why is it that we idolize celebrities rather than idolize people with ideas? Why do we look up so much to people who sing songs about genitalia? Literally, if we pull up the lyrics of some of the songs that are in the top 10 right now, they're singing about genitals. But we idolize that. We'll pay tons and tons of money to go see a concert to sing those same things. That I wonder if your children sang them, if you'd be happy with that. I don't know. Maybe you would be that. You're a cool mom. You're a dad who's their best friend. Maybe, but I guess I would ask you just intuitively. This isn't me telling you anything. This is me just asking you a question. Would you want that for your kids? Would you want that for people you care about and that you love? Which one would you rather them be? Full of ideas or song lyrics about genitals? I don't know. And if you say song lyrics about genitals, man, go for it. That's your choice. That's your life. But I wonder. It's like if I were to ask you, what can you name? Can you name 10 different kinds of beers? How many 10 commandments can you name? We all know the one about murder, and that's pretty much where it stops. But man, beers, let me tell you, we're not even old enough to drink, but we can name 20, 30 different kinds of alcohols. Let's pay attention to what we're paying attention to. Social media is one of those things that we think of social media as technology. We know, it's technology. It's an app. It isn't the technology that's driving it, man. Technology is, the phone, it has changed us in dramatic ways. It has. Whether or not it's necessary is different from the question of whether it's ubiquitous. In other words, just because it's everywhere doesn't necessarily mean that it's necessary. And I guess I would ask, it's necessary for what? For communication? What are we communicating? Are we communicating something that's important, something that's valuable? Or are we communicating? I saw a video a couple days ago of a cat who goes and bites the owner, and the owner sits there and says, "What are you doing?" And the cat lets go. Starts to stare off into space. and then like walks away, and the owner has voiced over it saying, "You're right. What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? I need to go find meaning and purpose." And someone took the time to put this thing together. It's funny as hell. It's true. But I guess the question was that video necessary? It was entertaining. And that's the thing that should concern us, perhaps. But this idea of what's necessary, what we mean by that is that it's entertaining. And by entertaining, what we mean necessarily is that it's distracting. It takes us away from something else. What's it taking us away from? What are we paying attention to? Let's pay attention to what we're paying attention to. What's it distracting us from? Have you found your meaning? Have you found your purpose? Have you found the reason for getting up in the morning? Have you found the thing that propels you forward every day? Have you found the thing that speaks to your soul? Have you found the things that excite you? I don't just mean the things that entertain you, but the things that really are necessary to a joyful life, to a meaningful life, to a purposeful life. Because the life that you're establishing right now is the life that you're going to be living in 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, God willing. And it's the life that if you're going to have children, that you're going to be bringing your family into. Then you're going to go out and you're going to create a world. And the world that you're creating is the world that you're going to bring your family into. And you're going to bring everybody else's family into. And not just here, but all over the world. We're so interconnected because of technology. And so what is it that you're paying attention to? What is it that you're pursuing? What is it, by the way, if you're entertaining yourself constantly, what is it that you're trying to distract yourself from? Is it the ennui? Is it the boredom of life that leads to a despair and meaninglessness in ourselves? I wonder if your phone's contributing to that. Because as we're watching videos of all the great and fun things that our friends are doing, by definition, you're not doing that when you're doing something exciting and fun and interesting. You're watching that during your boredom. And so it's easy to start thinking that, therefore, everybody else is living a super exciting life except for me, because we're playing each other's highlights over and over again. So it's easy to start thinking that there's something wrong with you, that you're the one who's missing out. I think I mentioned earlier something about extremely high rates of mental illness and depression and anxiety and suicide and all that. Well, no wonder. Because rather than finding a meaning and a purpose, in other words, pursuing what's relevant and necessary, and again, not what somebody else is telling you is relevant and necessary, but discovering it for yourself. You can't discover it for yourself in the buffering time between videos. There isn't enough time in that time right there. And I can prove it, because if there was, you would have found it by now. And so that tells us that there's something missing, that there's something wrong from there. We have to be careful when we allow our modes of entertainment to be the very things that erode our critical abilities. I'll say that again. We have to be very careful when our modes of entertainment become the things that erode our critical abilities. When the things that we do to entertain ourselves are actually the things that distract us and stop us from being able to do something meaningful and to figure out what that meaningful thing is. I mean, if it was as simple as somebody being able to come along and tell you what it was, well, first off, would we listen to it? Probably not. I'm sure you have a lot of people in your life telling you what's meaningful and purposeful, but you've got to find that for yourself. And so, I don't know, is that the technology that we're using, is it necessary for that? Or does it distract us from that? Is it actually a counter to it? And I guess if you want to get, I guess, deeper in the weeds into it, I guess the question is, then you're not benefiting from this. So, I guess in the short term that you're distracted, but who's benefiting from your distraction? Is it the companies that are advertising to you through there? Is it the companies that have your attention? How much do you pay for TikTok? How much do you pay for YouTube? Zero. You think it just exists out there out of the kindness of Google's heart? Out of the kindness of TikTok's heart? They just say, you know what? We just really want to make people happy. Let's just spend millions and millions and millions of dollars investing in these technologies, put them out there just for people to use for free because we care so deeply about you. It's funny, the same people who will say things like, you know, we'll cross our arms and scratch our chins and say, I can't stand the church. All they want is your money while you're standing in line at Starbucks watching a TikTok video. Don't you think everybody just wants your money? Google doesn't want your money, they just want your eyeballs. They get their money from someplace else because they sell your information, they sell you. And it gets to a point now where it's so ingrained in us that we don't even think about it. We're just like, so? They're selling everything about you, all of your search history, and they're plugging it all into algorithms so they can figure you out, so they know what you're looking for before you do. So, okay. But again, pay attention to what you're paying attention to. If it doesn't bother you that every bit of information about you is being sold, not just that it's known, but that it's being sold for somebody else's benefit, to distract you from what's necessary, and that they profit from you not finding what your meaning and your purpose is. Because once you find it, they can't sell it to you. Once you realize it's free, it can't be monetized. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. What do I know? Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?